Hello everybody, and welcome to another development log for Battle Tanks, the web-based game that I'm creating using TypeScript and Three.JS. This update reflects mainly on multiplayer support in the form of movement packets, which have now been implemented, at least partially. So if we hop over to the Trello board here, you can see that basic multiplayer support has definitely had some progress, which is fantastic, and I'll go ahead and demo that to you now. So as we connect to the server, just go ahead and disregard the wireframe cylinder that you see here. That's related to collision detection, not to player movement. So that will be removed as collision detection is implemented, which is what I'm currently working on. Getting back to player movement, as you can see, you can still rotate the. I'm the green tank, by the way, even though as you can see there's actually two tanks. So as you can see, as I move, the camera moves along with me now. That's both in terms of movement and as far as rotation goes. So so that way the camera is always behind the tank, if you will. Now, the packets are being sent between players, so that player in red is actually another connected player that I have open in a different tab. So if we go ahead, so you're going to have to excuse the dark screen here from the game menu, but if I hop over to the other tab, you can see that as the player moves on that tab, additionally, as far as head rotation goes, that also gets updated, and then rotation as well. So as you can see, that update works as you would expect. So now player movement is being integrated, and of course that player receives the green. So the player that I'm using right now will also receive this player's update as well. So I can see that on both tabs right now, which is fantastic. So that about does it for player movement. Now I also wanted to talk a little bit about collision detection, which is the next thing that I'm working on, and will be most likely the content of the next devlog that I do. So as you can see, right now, when you rotate the tank, it always stays within that cylinder, just on the edge, so it's pretty close. But so what I'm using that cylinder for is a way to test what blocks are close to the tank. So, for example, now that the cylinder is intersecting that block, there's a potential that if I were to continue to rotate the tank, that it will eventually collide with the block that's in the world. Currently, of course, it just rotates through. However, I'm going to be using an oriented bounding box approach to ensure that that doesn't happen. I can't simply use axis-aligned bounding boxes or AABB collision detection, because as you can see, these tanks are not square in shape. So so a rectangle that is axis-aligned would be far bigger than the tank is. So it would have a lot of false positives as far as collision detection goes. So I have to use this oriented bounding box approach, which is definitely a little bit more challenging. So but I've been making progress, and I've been learning a lot for sure. Collision detection is something that's entirely new to me. So we'll see how it goes, and you can definitely check out the stream. I didn't end up streaming this morning, but there will most likely be an evening session today, as well as throughout the week. So I'll go ahead and leave all links to all of that stuff in the description, as well as to some helpful links that I found for the oriented bounding box collision detection. That's definitely been challenging. As far as movement goes, I'm just going to recommend that you view the source for that, both in the player and the client. All that's been pushed to GitHub now. There's many different approaches to doing this, and most of the tutorials that you see online follow pretty much the same protocol, where the packets are just being sent to the server. The server changes state somehow, and then it sends it back to all the other players. I am using a tick-based system on the server, so there is at times a slight delay between packets being sent and actually being delivered to additional players. That's because the player update events are sent on consistent basis, depending upon if there's positional change or not. And then that brings me into the last thing, which you may not have been able to see during my demo earlier. However, when the tank is moving around the world, there is at times a bit of a jittery effect, and that comes from the fact that the player position is simply being updated to the latest, which is at best which will be, even in the best kinds of situations, a little bit jittery. So there needs to be a form of interpolation, which, as you can see on the checklist, is still something that I'm reviewing. So that's definitely going to be something that I address in a little bit later, but it is definitely going. So what that essentially means is that as each frame is rendered, even though this tank isn't necessarily there's not necessarily a packet to update from the server, this client needs to actually take a guess at where that tank is, so that way the movement is fluid, much like this one is. So that'll definitely be something that I'll be working on in the near future. So go ahead and keep a lookout for that. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this development log. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.